Hey guys, this is Lee with Untap Potential. So, yesterday where we left off, we had started doing our Arcane Melee daily, and when it was all said and done, so far we have done 10 out of the 30 damage that we need to do to our opponent. Let's go ahead and finish that right now, because that'll give us enough gold for another booster pack. The real question is here, who do we want to go up against? Do we want to do a solo battle against the computer, or do we want to throw ourselves out there again and try to battle another human? I just woke up, so let's do solo battle. We are, however, going to do it on hard. Try to earn 15 gold here. The goal is to do as much damage as we can to creatures or players that is not combat damage. So basically, we want to use our spells and our creature abilities to do it, not by attacking, although we're certainly still going to do that. It'll probably take us a few games to fix this. Okay, looks like we won the dice roll and are going to go first. Goblin Arsonist here is a good way to do some damage. Enthralling Victor will let us steal our opponent's cards, and Traitorous Instinct will let us steal their biggest threat to end the game with. We're going to go ahead and keep this hand as it's perfectly serviceable, has both our colors, and has 3 lands, and it has a 1-drop. A very good 1-drop for what we're trying to do with that. So we're going to go ahead and cast him. But first, we are going to, and I've been meaning to do this, we are going to go and set the sound effects a bit lower. Okay, as we were. The opponent plays a Rogue's Passage, which taps for colorless mana, meaning he's probably not casting anything this turn. But it seems like his strategy might resolve around trying to hit us directly. I meant to play the Dragonskull Summit this turn, but ultimately, it doesn't matter. So we're going to go ahead and put Inferno Fist on the Goblin Arsonist, and we're going to hit as hard and as fast as we can. One thing that I've been trying to teach myself to do is just hover over a card and click. There's no need to drag. And that'll help prevent misclicks like the one I just did. Also, your hand tends to shift as you draw cards, so even if you're hovered over one, you may no longer be hovered over it once you've drawn. Something else to be wary of. Watch my hand here as I draw my card to begin my turn. Okay, this was a bad example. It didn't actually do what I was advising you against. Normally, if I have a card like in the middle, it'll push it over. Mostly probably because our hand sorts by creatures, then non-creatures, and it keeps the lands to the left. I'm pretty sure that's the issue at hand. We're going to go ahead and attack here. We do have a now Twin Bolt, which is another way to do non-combat damage, and we have the activated ability of Inferno Fist. So, that is so far at least 4 damage that will not be combat, that we can get through this battle. We're going to hold the Twin Bolt, though, in case he plays a creature, so that we can just wipe it out next turn. Because as much as finishing the daily is nice, it is something we should do just in our normal pursuit of gold. We shouldn't really go out of our way to do it. I do hope we draw a land next turn so that we can play our 4-drops, such as Enthralling Victor and Traitorous Instinct. Our opponent plays another tap land, though, so it doesn't seem like they're interested in finishing this in a hurry. Well, I am. So, 3 more damage to the opponent. If all else fails, we'll just get him to low life and just use all our burn spells directly against his face. It's a valid strategy. The question we now have to decide is whether we want to keep Twin Bolt up, or whether we want to play Corpse Hauler this turn, as we'll only have 1 mana left if we play the Corpse Hauler, which means we cannot use the Twin Bolt on our opponent's turn. Our Goblin seems to be doing a good enough job beating down on his own. I'm going to keep up the mana for Twin Bolt. There's no point in overextending on a board when we already have a comfortable lead. It'll just lead to us getting blown out. Speaking of blowouts, our opponent has finally tipped his hand. It's Zendikar Incarnate, which has power equal to the number of lands you control. So currently, it's got 4 power and 4 toughness. This creates a bit of a problem for us now, as we still don't have 4 mana, and now we only have 3 power. So what we're going to go ahead and do is we are going to cast Twin Bolt, targeting this twice. So you have to double click it to assign both damage to it, and that puts 2 damage on the creature. Then we are going to use the activated ability of Inferno Fist, sacrificing it off our Goblin to do 2 more damage to the Zendikar, which we have done. So now that it had 4 damage on it, it went to the graveyard, and that leaves us free to peck in for 1 damage with our Goblin. That also puts 4 damage so far, closer to our daily. Hooray! So our opponent's clearly interested in ramping into big, powerful things here. And fortunately, that's not the big problem it looks like it might be, as we can just start stealing them. He plays a Meteorite. This is a artifact that can tap to add any color of mana to his mana pool, and when it enters the battlefield, it also does 2 damage to target creature or player. I guess he's trying to do the daily too. So he goes ahead and kills our Goblin. But fortunately, the Goblin, when it dies, gets to do 1 damage to target creature or player, so he takes another damage. That puts us up to 5. We really want to draw land this turn, so fingers crossed. Hey, there it is. So we got our land this turn. And we're going to go ahead and run out the Accursed Spirit, since it has more power, and he'll have a harder time blocking it. We also don't have any other direct damage abilities in our hand currently, and while we can dig for them next turn with Bitter Revelation, right now I think we just want to go ahead and wrap this game up before it gets any more dangerous for us. Here our opponent plays a Juggernaut, which attacks each turn if able, and it has 5 power. Y'all seeing what I'm seeing? What we can do next turn is use Traitorous Instinct to steal his Juggernaut. It'll get haste and +2/+0, meaning that next turn, unless he plays another creature, we'll be able to swing for lethal. He does play another creature, however, a Dwynen's Elite, which when it enters the battlefield, if he controls another elf, he gets to put an elf token onto the battlefield. Unfortunately for him, he does not. But it's still a 2/2 blocker. We do draw another land now that I'm not strictly certain we need, but I'm not unhappy to see. We are going to go ahead, though. No, we're not. Yes, we are. I misclicked. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and take control of his Juggernaut, just like we planned. And as we go to combat now, he has to block his own Juggernaut this turn, meaning his elf will die. I gotta remember, do not click until I am certain of what I mean to do. There does not, as far as I can tell, and I've read online to see if anybody else has found one, so far I have not seen a take backsies button, for lack of any better word. Our opponent's Juggernaut has to attack here, and we have no way to block it. I'm also not worried about it. We'll take it. We're at 20 life, he's at 6, we can afford to take this damage. And with one fell swoop, there goes 1/4 of our total life. In our second main phase, our opponent plays an Enthralling Victor, which unfortunately cannot target our creature. Unfortunately, our Enthralling Victor cannot target his Enthralling Victor. So now our opponent has a way to block us. And would you look at that? The first thing we're going to go ahead and do here is we're going to go ahead and cast our Bitter Revelation, hoping to draw... No, we're not. Actually, that would not be a good play. What we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and run out Ember Hauler here. He has the ability that for 1 mana we can sacrifice him to do 2 damage to target creature or player. So we're going to keep that up for right now in order to defend, and since he cannot block our Cursed Spirit, we're going to go ahead and knock our opponent down to 3 life. So next turn, we'll be able to finish him off with our effectively unblockable creature. We could also play Corpse Hauler this turn, and since we only need 1 mana to activate this ability, I'm going to go ahead and do that. Just so that we have 1 extra defender and 1 extra creature on the board, so just in case he pulls anything funny next turn, we can still squeak out a victory. At the end of our turn at instant speed, he activates Artificer's Epiphany, letting him draw 2 cards. If he controlled no artifacts, he would then have to discard 1, but he's got the Juggernaut, an artifact creature, so he gets to keep them both. The opponent's play there was smart. Using instants at the end step is the best time to do them, as it leaves your mana open for other plays until the last possible second. And here we're running into a bit of a pickle. Whirler Rogue, when it enters the battlefield, will put 2 colorless Thopter creature tokens into play. We're going to let that happen. The issue here is with Intimidate. Before we were going to be effectively unblockable, since he doesn't have any black creatures, but artifact creatures can block our spirit, meaning that we're going to have a much harder time getting in next turn for that lethal hit. Whirler Rogue, for the record, is a fantastic Magic card. Our opponent then proceeds to play another Juggernaut as well, which would also be able to block, creating problems for us. We have to find a way to eke out 3 damage next turn. Okay, our opponent's going wide here, and what we're going to do is we're going to declare the blocker here, confirm the block, stop the timer, use our activated ability, and we're going to deal 2 damage to our opponent's face, putting him down to a single solitary life. We also took no damage there, since even though his creature did attack, it was still blocked. Now we have to figure out a way to win this turn. We will need multiple creatures to do it, and I think Enthralling Victor is just what we need. Let's see. We don't have any artifacts to use against that, and his Juggernaut, if it attacks, will require some big blocks. We can't steal it, however, as it's too tough. So what we need to do is we need to get as many artifacts out of the way as possible, and here's how we win. We use Enthralling Victor to enthrall and take control of one of his Thopter tokens. He now only controls 2 artifacts, which means that he will only be able to... He'll have to use one of them, probably the Juggernaut, to block my Accursed Spirit. He'll have to use his 1/1 flyer in order to block his own 1/1 flyer, and better to not die. And finally, Corpse Hauler will get in, and he'll have to trade one of his either his 2/2 or his 3/2 in order to stop us from hitting him. We're going to confirm our attack with everybody. Exactly like we thought, our opponent makes the trades. Meaning we've wiped a very large amount of his board completely away. And next turn, we'll use Bitter Revelation to try to draw some cards in order to get an even better way to try to defeat our opponent. So our opponent has used Rogue's Passage, making his Juggernaut unblockable this turn. So we're going to take the 5 damage and go to 10. This unfortunately puts us on a 2-turn clock here that we have to find a way to defeat our opponent by then. He plays a land, and even though we can attack with Enthralling Victor this turn, he has his own Victor to block us with. We're going to go ahead and Bitter Revelation here. That mana assortment looks fine, in order to try to draw just a straight-up kill spell like a Twin Bolt, or we get to put 2 cards into our hand. So we're going to take Corpse Hauler and Perilous Mirror, the 2 creatures, because we have land for days we really don't need anymore. We're also going to go ahead and play the Perilous Mirror here, because as soon as that dies, we get to deal 2 damage to target creature or player, which will be enough to defeat our opponent. Going to combat here, we're going to attack, because he'll have no choice but to trade his Enthralling Victor for ours, and this will allow us to continue to have board control. Our opponent will probably make his creature unblockable again next turn, which will put us down to 3 life. I believe he's doing that now. And that's okay, because next turn, if he doesn't play another creature to block with, we just attack with the mirror and win. If he does, we attack with the mirror anyway. He'll have to block, and when it dies, we get to do damage to target creature or player, which will let us finish off our opponent. He plays another gate, leaving him with 1 final card in his hand, and he does not appear to have drawn a defender. We also draw an Ember Hauler here, which is a way to do more damage to target creature or player with abilities. So, since this is a computer we're playing, and we don't have to worry about hurting its feelings by showing off, we're going to play our Ember Hauler. We're going to sacrifice our Ember Hauler, and we're going to win that way. We got there, folks. 3 life left and only 1 turn left on the clock, but we have triumphed again. We earned 15 gold for defeating the AI, and as we go to the results screen, let's see how much damage we did. We watched the bar move, and I don't see a way to hover over that. We can go back to the screen. But by my math, I believe it was either 7 or 8. So our opponent has fallen, and we have defeated the AI. Like we said, let's go back and look real quick. 17, okay. So we still have to do 13 more, which, using this deck, will probably happen over the course of probably the next 2 games. Let's do 2 more games. We're going to battle the AI one more time. I'm still learning the ins and outs of this deck, which the deck wizard built for me, but so far it seems to be doing a pretty bang-up job of it. I selected this image because it was the first one that came up last night, and I built this in a hurry to try to test the deck wizard before I had to go to sleep, and it seems to have worked out pretty well so far, and it appears we're facing the mirror. Let's see what that means for us. We have a hand here that only uses red cards, and only 2 mana to spend, but currently that pays for everything we have, and we have a turn 1 drop that can get out of control in a hurry with our Infectious Bloodlust. Our opponent's playing first, which means we're also on the draw, giving us a chance to get that 3rd land, hopefully a black land, by a turn where we need it. We're going to keep the hand. The current line of play here will be to spend our 1st mana in our 1st turn casting the Goblin Arsonist. We'll probably follow it up by putting Infectious Bloodlust on it, which will make it even more powerful and give it an extra point of toughness. So we'll go ahead and start by playing our mountain, we'll run out our Goblin Arsonist, and since we are summoning sick, we will pass our turn. The opponent right now is currently using blue mana, not known for its creatures, which means that if we're able to get a strong creature out early, we could rush them down before they're able to do anything. Blue does, however, have a lot of ways to return creatures to their owner's hands, which if we're not careful, means that as we try to cast an aura on our creature, he might return it to our hand, causing our aura to fizzle. It's a very powerful strategy, as our mana is still spent, and we don't get to reassign the target. This enchantment also makes it even easier for us, as our creature is now required to attack. And given that Goblin Suicide is basically their standard MO, if we lose him, so be it. Next turn we can run out the Ember Hauler or the Perilous Mirror, depending on what we see. Our opponent plays a Dimir Guildgate, giving them access to black mana, but since it enters tapped, there's nothing they can do with it this turn. We draw a mountain here, and we're going to go ahead and throw it into play. We're also going to go ahead and put an Inferno Fist on our Goblin Arsonist. Let's just end this game quickly. So we now have a 5/2 that has to attack each turn. We also have the activated ability of Inferno Fist, so if he plays a creature on his turn that has 2 toughness or less, we can just kill it. Which also counts towards our daily. Yeah! The opponent's going down in a big hurry here, so hopefully they have a play next turn. We have, however, put a lot of eggs in this one basket here, and we need to wait and see how it pans out. So our opponent's gone to their 2nd main phase before doing anything, and here they cast a Frost Lynx, which is an excellent card, because when it enters the battlefield, tap target creature an opponent controls, it doesn't untap during its controller's next turn. So for those of you watching at home, you already know what's happening now. We don't get to attack next turn. So that ability resolves, but during his end step, we are going to go ahead and use this to kill his creature. Just go ahead and get it out of the way. As we begin our next turn, we draw a Twin Bolt, which will also be excellent for running down whatever our opponent tries to do next turn. Since our current creature is tapped down and we cannot attack, we're going to go ahead and play Ember Hauler, getting that on the field. It's a way to do 2 more damage next turn and keep the way clear. Since it's summoned sick, it cannot attack, and we pass the turn. I said we pass the turn. Okay, there we go. It's holding off because I could activate my Ember Hauler's ability, sacrificing him to deal 2 damage to target creature or player, which is almost certainly something we're going to do this turn if he plays a creature, such as this Jorabai Murklurker. Unfortunately, the Murklurker is a 1/3, and our 2 damage won't be enough to kill it, so we're going to leave the Ember Hauler alive, for now. It does not get its bonus +1/+1 though, since our opponent does not control an actual swamp. So what we're going to go ahead and do here, we got to clear the way for our Goblin Arsonist. So we are going to go ahead and sacrifice our Hauler to deal 2 damage to it. We are then going to go ahead and use Twin Bolt. Since it has 2 damage on it already, it only needs 1 more damage to die. So 1 damage to it, and 1 damage to our opponent, since we can split the damage up. Oh boy, that was 4 more damage towards our daily. We now have to attack here because of our Infectious Bloodlust. It requires our creature to attack each turn if able, so we get 3 more damage in on the opponent. Next turn we'll have access to Twin Bolt or an Inferno Fist, so again, we can keep the path clear as much as possible. Our opponent plays an Eyeblight Assassin, which gives target creature -1/-1 till end of turn. Normally this would be enough to kill our goblin, but since we have that bonus toughness from our aura, it's unable to do so. And it having 2 power and 2 toughness, A double twin bolt will be just enough to clear the way. We finally draw our fourth land, a Dragon Skull Summit, which will give us access to our black mana. We don't particularly need it at this point. What we needed was just mana number 4, which we now have. We're going to cast Twin Bolt, targeting our opponent's creature with both damage in order to do 2 damage and destroy it. Before we attack, we're also going to activate Inferno Fist on our goblin, giving him 2 more power to attack with this turn. He has to attack, so we're going to attack for 5 damage, putting our opponent at 3. Which next turn means that we can sacrifice our Inferno Fist to do 2 damage, and if our goblin dies, it's enough to do 1 more. So here's another Eyeblight Assassin, which once again is going to make our creature smaller, but unfortunately is not enough to kill it. It is a way to block, however, but our Inferno Fist will kill it, and we will still have the requisite 3 toughness we need to attack for victory. We draw our final card here, and it's another mountain, which we're going to go ahead and play, just in case something goes terribly wrong. In the meantime, though, let's activate Inferno Fist's ability to do 2 damage to target creature. That way of spending this mana is fine. We have 3 power on the field, she has 3 life. Let's not beat around the bush for 1 more second, let's go to combat. We attack, we hit, I think. We hit. Flawless victory. And we got a lot more damage done towards our daily. Spectacular stuff. We also earned 15 more gold for our victory. Once we get to 150, we'll buy a pack. And our daily will let us do that, as we are dangerously close. One more time, and we'll get there. This game also, I think as long as we do at least 5, and I'm probably overdoing it by doing 5. I think we could get away with as few as 3 damage here. But we're going to go ahead and just do at least 5 damage, and then we're just going to aim to win. We're up against the goat. I'm not sure. Is that a species? Do we have goat people? I'm not sure. Very colorful stuff, though. So we have a sort of awkward hand here. We are playing first, which means we don't get to draw. However, we have 3 cards in our hand that only cost 1. 2 more that only cost 2, and 1 Traitorous Instinct, which is a card that's only really great in the late game as it lets us steal a very powerful threat from our opponent. So, even though it's greedy, I'm going to keep the hand. Mostly because, with the effect of our Goblin Glory Chaser, unless our opponent can get a defender out next turn, this will become a 2/2 creature that has to be blocked by 2 creatures. It'll let us get it in for a lot of damage fast, and if we're able to get Inferno Fist on it, oh, the fun begins. So we begin our turn by unfortunately bricking. We don't draw another card. We don't draw another land. So we're going to let our Goblin Glory Chaser attack here for 1. Our Goblin Glory Chaser has dealt damage to our opponent, meaning its Renowned trigger goes on the stack, which will put a +1/+1 counter on it. And once it's Renowned, it can only be blocked by at least 2 or more creatures, which is exactly what we wanted. In the second main phase, even though we only have 1 mana, we can still run out a Goblin Arsonist, which when it dies, deals 1 damage to target creature or player. So we'll be able to use that on our opponent. They play a Glacial Fortress, which enters untapped. Our opponent is playing white and blue, and they play a Perilous Mirror, which is the last thing I wanted to see right now, as that, when it dies, will allow him to destroy our Goblin Glory Chaser, unless we draw something to do with it. Unfortunately, we don't, as we've yet to hit another land. We're going to run out another Goblin Arsonist. We'll go ahead and build our field up as much as possible. And during combat, since he cannot block our Glory Chaser this turn, we're going to attack our opponent with it, effectively directly, since he cannot block. A creature cannot become renowned more than once, though, so we don't get another counter this turn. Hopefully next turn we'll draw our second mana, but in the meantime, we pass our turn. Our opponent doesn't do anything with their turn, meaning maybe they have an instant up, or maybe they just don't have anything. We draw another land, but unfortunately it's a Guild Gate, which enters tapped, so we can't spend it to do anything this turn. Nevertheless, our Glory Chaser is still effectively unblockable, so we're going to get in for 2 more damage. We'll be able to continue doing this until our opponent plays a second creature, and, using Inferno Fist, we might still be able to pull some shenanigans to keep them from being able to block us. That will require us to draw a third land, though, this turn. Our opponent, however, still seems not to have anything. We don't draw a land, we draw yet another Arsonist, but since our opponent still can't block us, we're going to go ahead and cast the Inferno Fist on this creature. We're just going to try to end this game as fast as possible. Goblin Glory Chaser attacks again. He's been getting a lot of glory so far today, with all the damage he's been doing. We will be talking about him, and trying to get more copies of him very soon. He's doing wonders for the deck. We're tapped out, however, so we can't run out any more creatures this turn, and our opponent has played their 5th land, where they have access to almost everything they need. And during the second main phase, they finally play another creature, a Dark Slick Drake. When it dies, they get to draw a card. It also has 2 power, 4 toughness, and flying. The flying part doesn't particularly matter. The fact that it can block us, and he can start blocking us now by virtue of having enough creatures, that is a problem. Further compounding the problem here is the fact that we are still not getting another land, meaning we have to make some tough decisions for how we're going to get through this turn. What we decide to do is we're going to go ahead and play our Ember Hauler. Next turn, we can use 1 mana to sacrifice him to do 2 damage to the flyer. We can also, in that turn, sacrifice our Inferno Fist. So we're not going to attack this turn. We're just going to pass our turn and let the opponent play. He plays Knightly Valor. Crud. What Knightly Valor does is when it enters the battlefield, the equipped creature gets +2/+2 in Vigilance, and he gets to put a 2/2 Knight creature token onto the battlefield. Meaning his army's getting bigger, and that Drake is now a big problem. On one hand, it's an excellent way for us to just steal... It's an excellent way for us to steal his big creature later. And unfortunately, I think our Goblin Glory Chase... what do we do here? If we block with the Mirror, he'll kill our Goblin Glory Chaser. But we're taking 5 damage to the face here. Since he only left 1 creature... No, wait, Vigilance. He will still be able to block us next turn. I kind of don't know what I was thinking there. These things happen. So we draw yet another Inferno Fist because we don't have enough of those already. And to make our man unblockable, we have to clear the Knight out of the way. Because he won't be able to block us with the Drake as long as he no longer has the Knight. So what we're going to do here, we're going to sacrifice our Inferno Fist to kill the Knight. We're then going to go ahead and declare combats. We're going to swing with the Arsonists as well, because even though he very likely will block one of them, when it dies, we can just do 1 damage to target to the opponent. And that's enough. That'll be okay. Because we're trying to wrap this game up quickly. So we do another damage to our opponent. We're keeping the Ember Hauler up as insurance, basically. And in the second main phase, we're going to play another Goblin Arsonist. We're really going to cross our fingers for another land next turn, as I think we can eke the victory out then and there if we draw one. There's no reason for the opponent not to attack us with the Flying Vigilant creature, as we can't block it, and it'll still be untapped for blocking purposes next turn. So we take 4 damage and go to 11. And during the second main phase, our opponent rolls out a Juggernaut, a 5/3. The thing we're going to have to figure out now is the best way to do 7 damage to our opponent this turn. Our Glory Chaser is now very, very blockable, and I don't see a way out of that. What we did just draw, however, is Inferno Fist, and that might be our out. The thing is, we have to figure out exactly how to do it right. And you'll have to forgive my silence. I'm having to think quite hard here. It's not something I'm particularly good at. Okay. So the line of play here is going to be to put the Inferno Fist onto the Goblin Glory Chaser, making it a 4/2. So far, so good. Then, we are going to go to the combat step, and we are going to attack with everybody. our opponent is now deciding how to block. What we want to do here is we want to block the Drake first. We then want to stop priority here because we are going to sacrifice our guy, doing 2 damage to the Dark Slick Drake. Meaning it now has 4 damage on it, meaning when we attack, we will deal a further 4 damage to it. Except I did the order backwards, meaning it will not work that way after all. One of these days I'm going to get that right. Well, we may have just cost ourselves the game here, unfortunately. Maybe not, however. As all we essentially have to do here is draw mana, steal a powerful creature. Nope, doesn't matter, guys. We're dead. D-E-A-D, dead. Well, that's terribly unfortunate. However, I do still think we did enough damage using our abilities to complete our daily quest. I gotta get better at this blocking thing. I should have paid more attention during the tutorial. Oh, we didn't get there? Heartbreaking. We did, however, get the Veteran achievement by getting one of our creatures to become renowned. I kind of thought we did that already. Oh well. Are we really 1 short? Yes. Yes, we are. Oh, that's a heartbreaker. Alright guys, I'm going to earn this last one off camera, and once I've done that, we're going to come back and we're going to open our booster pack and see what we get. Well, the good news is, you do get quest credit even when you lose. So that's nice, but as a word of advice, you don't get it if you concede. I did play a game where I just got in, twin bolted on turn 2 to get the last damage, conceded. You don't get credit for that, but you do get credit even if you get your butt kicked by the easy mode AI. The less we say about it, the better. That said though, we now have enough to go buy ourselves a booster pack, and we're going to do that. 150 gold, confirm our purchase, and let's see what we got. The Guardians of Meletis, an Alchemist Vial, a Fiery Impulse, a Blazing Hellhound, another copy of Victor, and Animus Awakening is our rare. Let's go through it real quick. Fiery Impulse deals 2 damage to target creature, or if we have Spell Mastery, it deals 3 instead. Where the heck were you today? Could have used you. Alchemist Vial, when it enters the battlefield, we get to draw a card, and by paying 1 mana, tapping this artifact and sacrificing it, target creature can't attack or block this turn. Useful for getting in with a big hit, or from stopping your opponent from hitting. This artifact costs 3 mana, has Defender, and is a 0/6. I'm gonna be honest guys, we're not going to be using this one much. Enthralling Victor we've seen before. Tear your eyes away from his abs for a second, and let's talk about the fact that he can steal your opponent's creatures. It can be very good. I've been using it. I'm not overly amazed with it, but it's solid. Except the abs. I'm overly amazed at those. Damn. Okay. Blazing Hellhound, though, this guy's awesome. This guy plays well with Victor. We steal their creature, and then we use his ability. Paying 1 mana and sacrificing another creature, Blazing Hellhound deals 1 damage to target creature or player. What's better than stealing our opponent's creature and using it against them? Stealing it, using it against them, and then not having to give it back. This also costs 2 mana, 1 black, and 1 red for a 4/3. Those are fine stats on their own. Animus Awakening. We reveal the top X cards of our library, so it's green and X, where X is however much you want, anything between 0 and the maximum you have available. You reveal the top X cards of your library. Put all land cards from among them onto the battlefield tapped, and the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. And if there are 2 or more instant and or sorcery cards in your graveyard, those lands enter untapped instead. So useful for powering out something big, especially if you're in a deck that wants that sort of thing. Probably, I imagine like a green-red deck is the first thing that comes to mind. It can be pretty solid in that. I'm not overly amazed with it though, but I could see us using this at some point. Alright guys, so that has been our first daily. Stay tuned tomorrow when we get another one. This is Lee with Untapped Potential. Thanks for watching.